Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and it's a big week, big month in sports. Normally, for those that don't know, I do corporate stuff, and things kind of calm down in December. But for sports, in the winter, in Iowa, for some reason, things get busy. I don't understand any of this. As you all know, I don't do sportsy stuff. I know kind of generally the rules, and that's about it. And so we're going to talk about Pop-Tarts, Pop-Tart Bowl, that is. We're going to talk about the Music City Bowl, great city of Nashville. We're going to talk about Caitlin Clark. We're going to talk about, maybe if we have time, the Iowa Wild upcoming season and all things sports today. And to do that, Ross Peterson, Iowa sports icon, joins us.
Former Iowa sports icon.
No, there is no such thing. Like Marines, and I'm going to get hate for this, but like a Marine, there's no such thing as a former Iowa radio sports icon.
Learned presidents, right? You're never a former president. You're always president.
It's true.
And isn't that true about governors also?
Oh, is it?
I think we're supposed to refer to governors. You're never a former governor, but I don't know that. Marines are the one
Those are the ones I fear. Yeah, governors aren't going to do anything, right. But Marines are going to be like
Jesse Ventura. He's the one that will get.
That's true. But Marines are going to be like, you can't say it that way. I learned my lesson on a show once when I introduced a former Marine. He's like, Justin, there's no such thing as a former Marine. And I was like, My days at Clear at the radio station, I worked with a gentleman named Doug Raftal. My dad is a Vietnam vet, so I hold veterans in very high regard. Oh, yeah. Doug was a Marine in Vietnam, and he was one of the guys that taught me that, because I think I did the same thing at one point. Said, I have a buddy that used to be a Marine. Oof. No. Oof. You're and not. Yeah, Doug was very good. That was the last he was ever seen. Well, I appreciate you coming in here.
Thanks for the invite.
I said, tons of sports stuff, and I know nothing about sports stuff. But I wanted to start with here, shockwaves through the Iowa sports world when you aren't on KXNO anymore. You've been an icon. You've been like a fixture over there for 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? Or you've been with iHeart for 21 years.
Yeah.
And so for those that don't know, which is like two people listening to this probably, you were on Sound Off in the Morning Rush.
Yep.
Do those shows even exist anymore? I mean, they
still do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they still do. Travis Justice, my co-host on both of those shows, they retained him, and he maintained the morning show and was doing Sound Off. I believe in the mornings now they've moved one of the afternoon hosts to host with Travis. And I think he's just kind of been getting a hodgepodge of guys to fill in with Sound Off.
Of course, because they don't plan this stuff.
Our friend Trent Condon. Yeah, right. Well, as we know, and we can probably talk about that a lot, but this is part of working for a corporation, and knew it was coming for a long time, because it's just such a volatile industry. But still a shock after 21 years, and there's a lot to process, man. It's been a weird couple of months for me. That happened the day before the election, and
it seems like a weird time.
It was wild, dude. It was so wild.
Did you said you knew this was coming?
I mean, when I say I knew it was coming, Justin,
you had a hunch.
Yeah. So I'd been fired back in 2020.
Yes.
And then was rehired just 28 hours later.
Yes.
And
we had Keith in here like a couple months ago talking about that story too.
Yeah. Murph was one of the main reasons I got the phone call to come back. But in that,
the Murph mob,
in that 28 hours was when that was when I knew November would happen. I didn't know if it would be a month or a year or 5 years, or as it turned out to be 4.5, almost 5. But I knew that it was going to come again. So it still sucked. I equate it to my mom passing away, because my mom got diagnosed with cancer. She fought it for a while. We knew the end was coming. We ended up doing home hospice for the last month. But so again, you knew it was coming. You saw it. You knew eventually this inevitable thing is going to happen. But the day it happens, you go, I want more.
Yeah.
I need more of this. And that was what the last couple of months have been very similar in that morning thing. Not nearly as severe as it was with my mom, obviously, but very similar emotional swings. and that kind of 7 steps of grief that you go through. There's all of it. I could walk through you and tell you the days that I was there. Another big cliche that I've learned to be true, Justin, we as humans, man, we need purpose. Mm-hmm. I'm also a realtor, but this, like your corporate world, this is a slow time for real estate. And man, not having that daily duty.
Yeah. Yep.
I found myself rudderless. I found myself oftentimes kind of without direction. Rudderless is probably the best way to go. I could just stand in my living room for 2 hours and catch myself standing there going, okay, do laundry, do dishes, do something to stay busy, because it's hard when you've had that 21 years of wake up every morning, go do this thing, at 5 o'clock every day, you feel like you did your day's work, and now all of a sudden you wake up and you don't get to do that anymore.
The hustle.
It's hard. Yeah,
that's one thing that's weird is I do this totally side thing, but I do this thing in Vienna every year at the Global Peter Drucker Forum. I host this 2-day stream. It's grueling. It's a ton of work. It's 2 days. I think the stream is like 8 to 10 hours each day. There's a ton of prep to lead up to it. It's insane. It's broadcast globally to all their members and all the. Anyway, long story short, it is grueling. It's intense. And one person, our team started with 3, then it was 6. This year it was 10 different hosts interviewing people throughout this whole thing. Someone asked, what advice do you have? I gave him just some chunks of advice. I said, hey, here's the other one. When you get home, just give some time to yourself, because it's going to emotionally just smack you in the face. Mm-hmm. And just for 2 days, when you have this run and gun, this publish every day mentality, and then that's done, it's like, what just happened to me? And so to do that for 21 years, every day producing, because in your show, it wasn't Monday through Friday. You were doing stuff on weekends, you were doing remotes, you were doing meet and greets, and then gone.
Yep, done.
That really messes with your head a little bit.
Justin, big time, man. Almost like an identity crisis type of thing. I've shared this story a lot, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this story, but I got to be friends several years ago with Derek Pagel. Derek was a defensive back for the Iowa Hawkeyes, grew up in Iowa, wanted to be a Hawkeye, wrote a book called Growing Up Hawkeye, and then played in the NFL. Lived the dream. What most athletes, this guy lived the dream. The best conversation I ever had with Derek was about when that dream ended. So he says, when I was growing up, I was Derek the football player. And I went to high school, I was Derek the football player. And I went to Iowa, and I was Derek the football player. And then I played in the NFL. And then 5 years after playing in the NFL, I got a phone call one day, and my agent says, you're no longer Derek the football player.
Yeah.
And it took him a year of sitting on his couch to figure out, who am I? And not quite as deep as that. And, obviously didn't have a year to sit around and do it. But you have that very real identity crisis. Like, how much of this has been ego? How much of this is, what do I want to do? It's a really hard question to answer. I never was able to answer that question when I was a teenager, Justin. Right. And now I'm 46, and I'm faced with that question again, with this whole world of possibilities in front of me.
Right.
I heard a really good thing today about a great shoe salesman only lets a person see 2 shoes at a time. You get to pick out 2 pairs of shoes. And if you say, I'd really like to see that 3rd pair, the salesperson says, okay, which one do you want me to take back? Because if you get too many options, you're more likely to say, I don't want any of them. It overloads them. It overloads you.
I used to sell women's shoes.
Did you really?
Boom. Minneapolis.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's very true. But.
And so I have been in that position here these last 2 months, where I've had too many pairs of shoes to choose from.
Sure.
And so it's paralysis by analysis. And so it's a great problem to have, but at the same time, it's a really hard question to answer.
Yeah. For those that don't know, like the traditional radio skills, are very desirable. I should have never done podcasting. are very desirable in corporate, because everyone's producing content and literally no one knows how to do it right.
Yeah.
Everyone just produces ads for themselves and puts it on Apple Podcasts or something, which, as you know, doing this for 21 years will never work, no matter how much money you put behind it.
You can throw, exactly. You throw $1 million behind that stuff. If it's not content that people want to be absorbing, you've lost it.
Yeah. But the transition from radio, like I was an accidental, as you know this, but I was also within the iHeart building here in Des Moines. I was on WHO, in a part-time role, just a side project, fun thing on the weekends.
I honestly thought you still were.
Did you really? Yeah.
That's when I came in. I was like, what was that? I really did. I didn't know until we were talking before.
I do get that. I get that from time to time. People are like, hey, I love your show on
how's
WHO.
the show going?
Yeah. And I was like, well, I haven't been on there in years. They're like, I could have sworn I heard you last week. I'm like, you're thinking of Jeff Angelo. You know, some people think I'm Jeff.
I hear that.
Yeah, some people. I'm like, dude, no, that's not my show style. That's not me. There was someone.
I hear that. I've never heard that before, Justin. Now it's clicked.
I saw a Reddit comment the other day no shade against Jeff at all. But,
Jeff's a great guy.
I don't really know Jeff that well. I was there a little bit. We run into each other a few times, but someone on Reddit had some comment like, can we get Justin Brady off the effing air? What an irritating person. And someone else responded, Brady hasn't been on for like 4 years. And he's like, I just heard him last week. Someone's like, that's Jeff Angelo, you dimwit or something. I'm like, why do people think we're the same?
And you're just catching strays out here? Holy cow.
We're not the same person. Oh my gosh.
But boy, politically, you guys are very much aligned.
Really? Are we really?
Yes.
I didn't know. I don't listen to his show.
You
Maybe
might
I should
be.
listen to his show.
I see that now. I admire both of you. So that's a compliment in my book for people to say that.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
smart guy, fun guy. You'd like Jeff a lot.
That's so funny. Let me go back to, there was round one and then round two. In round one, what was going on? Because like I told you, I'm fine talking about this now. At the time, I didn't want it being like interwoven with my brand. But at the time, my like silly little 2 hour on the evening show was also canceled when everything was like, bloodbath. Gongle was taken out. I was taken out. You guys left. You came back, like you said, 36 hours later.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened? Like, what was that?
I've been told a lot.
So you don't know anything
I have
official?
No idea. No. I don't trust any of the people that were involved in that, in bringing me back and what they told me and then what they said publicly.
When they brought you back, though, did they tell you at that time, public pressure, losing ad dollars, we're bringing you back, but you have a clock?
No, all they said, well, okay, parts of that, yes.
Okay.
Parts of that, yes.
So that's kind of where the gut feeling came from, is like you kind of knew this is probably coming down the road.
This is why the real estate thing started for me. This is where, because when I got fired.
Which we should call out Agency Iowa. I didn't make this connection, but we just had Mark on last week.
Yeah, did you really?
Yes, we did.
That's great.
So if you all want to see 2024 predictions on housing market trends, go check that episode out as well.
Mark sent that.
But don't call Mark. Call Ross for your house.
Absolutely. Mark doesn't need it. Trust me. I got kids to feed, baby.
Guy.
Mark is amazing. I'd love to talk about him as well. Mark really did help change my life, and I am not going too far as to say, in a way, kind of saved my life, Justin, because, dude, getting fired November, whatever that 4th, 5th, what was the election? November 4th? Whatever. Getting fired in early November. If I hadn't had real estate these last several years, dude, I'd be struggling for Christmas.
Oof.
I mean, because you know this, radio people don't make money.
Oh my gosh.
We do it for the fun and the fact that you get to put money in your bank account without actually working.
Yeah.
And I traded off financial security for this fun life.
Yep.
And at some point in time in 2020, when I got fired and I realized, oh no, this is a bad move. This has been really dumb. That was when Mark was lucky. I was lucky enough to have Mark jump into my life and say, hey, I'm looking at the Scrabble tiles of your life. You've done maintenance. You've worked on a construction company. My dad owned a little construction company. You're good at talking to people. They trust you. That spells realtor.
Oh, interesting.
You need to become a realtor. And becoming a real estate agent, it has been such a blessing in my life. And it was all because of Mark being a friend and saying, hey, I think this is something that could be beneficial for you. So back to the radio thing, Justin, man, that one came out of the blue. That one, we were kicking butt. We were all making a ton of money for other people.
Yes. Yeah.
The ratings were incredible. Our salaries were low. I was doing 7 jobs at the radio station. As you know, they'd fired Jack Emerson, my boss in the production department. They were cutting people left and right and then just piling those jobs onto the folks that were there. And I was one of those people. So I thought at that time, man, I'm as secure as could be here because I don't make any money and I'm doing all the job.
Yep.
So that one blew me away. I didn't really, still to this day, don't understand how that decision was made to fire us. And
it's
then,
because they're clueless. And I don't mean that harshly. Maybe I mean it a little harshly. I remember when we had our weekend show. It was me and Adrienne Branstad.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we took that show over. It had just no ratings, no impressions, no nothing, no impact whatsoever.
I remember this.
And within 1 year, we took that show to be, I think it was about 1 year. We took that show digitally because I was like, a weekend, I've been told weekend radio, no one listens.
On
so
AM,
I'm going to have to,
on an AM stick.
On an AM station, no one listens. So I'm going to have to compete digitally. Otherwise, this show will never live. Yeah. And so we ended up leading the entire state in digital impressions. At one point, we were beating Simon by 30% in digital impressions and every show on WHO radio combined. Our show was beating the other cluster stations. For those that don't know, iHeart cluster is like other stations throughout the state.
Yeah.
We were beating entire stations, just our show. Our show's 2 hours. We were beating entire stations that had daily programming content combined. Crazy. And then I got the response in local iHeart, what is an impression anyway and why do we care?
You're nailing it. So Justin, this is one of the problems with corporate media. It moves at a glacier's pace. It's always 7 steps behind, and not a few. It's light years behind. So when you have somebody that's a forward thinker, somebody that understands technology, and they come in the building and they say, and I saw this happen a dozen times. Let's do this on the internet. Let's start putting videos on YouTube. Let's start monetizing some other streams on this. Let's get podcasts and start monetizing those podcasts. You got constant pushback, yes. Constant, because they didn't understand it. And I was told at one point in time, podcasters don't get paid. They only do it for the passion.
Yeah, one of our podcasts, I don't want to call this person out just because we haven't had this conversation ahead of time, but there are multiple shows on this thing. iowapodcast.com has multiple shows. One of our show hosts, right coming out of the gate, so brand new show, 0 listeners, 0 traffic whatsoever, was making more than I did at iHeart on day 1.
Yeah.
And putting in a tiny fraction of the time and work.
I will, again, I've had a lot of friends that have stepped out of radio and gone into podcasting, and every single one of them tells me that same story. I'm making more money doing less. I'm doing less work. I'm less days a week, less hours in a week, and I'm bringing home more money than I did from the corporation. And again, they're just trying to service. It's nobody's fault here in Des Moines. The corporation is billions of dollars in debt. Yeah. And like to your point, they think that firing, $30,000 employees is how they're going to get to $5 billion.
No slight against the local people here. It's iHeart, this giant corporation.
And
that
just
doesn't know
when
what
I
they're
was
doing,
fired
that's the problem.
this second time, the first time again, took it very personally.
Yeah.
Still to this day, have no use for those people that made that decision. Don't like them. Would not talk to them if I saw them in public. Mm-hmm. And will never include them on my team again. This last round, it had a different feel. And I don't know if it was just the way it was handled from the different general manager and the tone that was taken. But it was very much more of I get it. This was coming and I'm ready to go. And thank you. And I did thank him. The guy's name is Seth. When he told me they had to let me go, I said, hey, man, if I get one spin around this planet, this has been a really fun 20 years. To do this in my hometown and be able to have fun and talk about sports and politics, share with people my opinions and pretend that matters, man, what a fun.
There's something about it. And I didn't understand this because I came in as a rookie, no experience. It was like a complete fluke how I got on WHO to begin with. I think right time, right place, right experience.
That's how it works.
And
God.
Total fluke. Yeah, could be.
It's God.
Probably.
Yeah.
It is. You're right. All right. You're right.
Yeah.
Total but I couldn't have repeated that process even if I tried. But there's something about I even went to a college that had a radio program. Had nothing to do with the radio program because I'm like, radio.
Right.
So I got into money.
I'm not going to make radio.
There's something about, like, this is great. The podcast is great. there's something about live real time.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but that connection with individuals, because it's not, I think a lot of people think of radio, they think of a dude in a box or a gal in a box talking and somewhere people are listening.
Yeah.
And when you do your first thing, I can still remember my first time doing it. That's what it feels like. It feels like no one's listening.
You are.
No one cares.
Yep.
There's an audience of one, and that's the producer behind the glass and me. And
if you're lucky,
you
look up and the producer's listening. Because sometimes you look up and the producer's on his phone, or you're like, true. I've even lost this guy.
Dang it.
The one dude is being paid to be here. I've lost him.
I can't even hold that guy's attention. And then there's this click where you start getting text, you start getting calls, and you're like, holy cow, people are listening.
Yeah.
And there's something about that that's crazy. And, maybe one day on this platform, we'll do the live thing and connect, but it's this massive relational thing. And you really understand how Iowans think. And Iowa, for whatever, Iowa is a sports state. We do tons of content on iowapodcast.com. Does fine. But when we talk about Cyclones or Hawkeyes, every darn time, it goes frickin' nuts. So can we talk on the tail end?
Dude, you, again, open book, man. We can do anything you want here.
Let's talk first about Pop-Tarts Bowl. USA Today, best bowl game matchup to watch this year. Obviously, ISU versus Miami. Why? Why is USA Today saying that?
Well, Miami's quarterback is one of the most dynamic players in the country. And it sounds like he's going to play. You never know with these bowl games. I mean, until kickoff, they're trying to sell you a product. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think on paper, these two teams going 100% and full effort, it does shape up as being one of the best bowl games. And I would caution any Iowa State fan, never is the game that's predicted to be the most exciting, the actual most exciting game. And I could see this happening. If Cam Ward it doesn't play for Miami, Iowa State this could be a boring game in Iowa State's favor.
Wait. There's a chance he won't play?
Yeah, because he's going to be drafted into the NFL. And so playing in this exhibition game, it all depends. So Justin, there's so much that's changed in college sports. Now with guys being paid, there could be some sort of contractual obligation for him to be on the field during the bowl game. I don't know that to be true. So again, I've just seen this play out enough to know, don't trust in mid-December what they tell you is going to happen in early January. A couple of weeks out, anything could happen. This kid comes close to tearing a tendon in practice or rolling it, and then he won't play.
Oh, good. So that's a good point. So there's a lot of money. So because there's a lot of money for him getting injured in this, so he may as well just sit it out.
Which is what's happening with the bowl games, Justin, here recently. This is going to become a common trend. It's going to become more and more popular for players to opt out of the bowl game because they've got potential NFL money on the line. We're not talking about dozens of guys per team, but on the really good teams, you're going to have some of the main players do that, and it's a growing trend.
So what is also, or has been a growing trend, we're going to talk about Hawks too, Music City, but what is also a growing trend, or at least has been maybe the last 5-10 years, is it seems like there's a bowl game for everything.
Oh.
It's like we're going to have a toilet bowl for the two teams who do the worst. Just because, actually probably make more money.
It would be fun.
They probably make more money. But it seems like we're having a new bowl every year. There's tons of bowls. It's this trend. But what I'm hearing you say is, oddly, with the new rules, the new NCAA rules that allow people to make money, is this trend going to go backwards?
I do think so. I think that bubble has burst. If it hasn't burst, it's going to burst this year or in the coming years, meaning those growing number of bowl games where teams have to win 6 games to get a chance to play in a bowl. I think everybody is realizing that that's kind of a folly. The sponsors aren't getting their money, a return on the investment. The teams, the players benefit. The players get a trip. They get a reward for a successful season. They usually get a swag bag full of stuff. That's great. Wonderful for the players. The money is what matters. And with the college football playoff, the bowl games are going to become less and less relevant. I don't know what that looks like, man. I would love to be able to hit a button and fast forward about 5 or 10 years. And I think that's probably the window where we're going to see some major changes and see what bowls exist. See which ones survive and what they even look like, and do this first round of the playoff, this is the first year we're going to get this Division I college football playoff. Those are not bowl games right this year. Those are just home games for those top seeds. I envision it in 5 to 10 years that there's a sponsor attached to those games, and that's a pseudo bowl game. The fans lose in this. And even as I pushed for this for years and thought we really need the college football playoff and we need to be paying the players, I also said at the same time, but beware, we lose as fans. Because as a season ticket holder for the Hawkeyes for many years, if I was lucky as a poor kid, I could save enough money to go to a bowl game. Now, if that game was in L.A. or Pasadena for the Rose Bowl, I probably wasn't going to be able to afford that ticket anyway.
Right.
All right.
True.
But if they were playing in Nashville, now we're talking. I can afford a trip to Nashville at the end of December.
Nashville's one Allegiant flight away.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Or even driving down if you got a group of buddies that want to do that. You could,
You're a glutton for punishment. Nashville tickets are cheap, people.
Yeah.
You know,
but
for Allegiant flight.
My point being, as a fan, I was lucky if I could do a bowl trip.
Right.
So now let's look at what's going to happen. If Iowa State had made the playoff, Iowa State would have played a road game at Penn State. Not a bowl game. It's a road game at Penn State. And if they lose that game, season's over.
Mm-hmm.
If they win that game, now they get to travel to go to an actual bowl game. And if they win that game, now they get to travel to go play in a third postseason game.
Yeah.
As a fan, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't.
Not to mention, it's not really like bowl games used to. The reason fans traveled is because bowl games were special.
Yeah.
And if they're not special, do fans stop traveling?
From Iowa, no. You get a chance to get away from the winter and go to a warmer climate and support your team. And so it just combines a lot of things. You make the family happy by getting away. You get a warm climate, and you get to support your team and have fun with it. It seems to make sense for people. Iowa State, with kind of their new success here, that fan base is going to be passionate. So winning 10 games for the first time,
true,
they're going to travel. Wherever they're at, they're going to travel. And I would even say, Justin, that'll probably happen for a couple of years. Now here's the other bad thing that's going to happen for Cyclone fans. Same thing that happened to the Chiefs fans. You get a taste of success, and all of a sudden 7 wins doesn't scratch you where you itch anymore.
True.
And just like Hawkeye fans,
it's kind of the Marvin McNutt era.
There you go.
And it was just like sensational catches and insane stuff and domination. And then we never got back there.
Never.
You know?
So you're chasing that dragon.
Yeah, and so everyone's ticked off every year.
And that's what's going to happen with Cyclone fans. You get this 10-win season, you get this really nice bowl game. Next year, maybe you even make the college football playoff. And now all of a sudden your expectation for success is here. And you're just like a Hawkeye fan. You're
Cyclones,
disappointed.
man, I tell you, like that fan base is crazy.
Yeah.
So much energy. Like we just did a show with the equipment director at ISU on the football uniforms, how they're made, how they're created.
What's the equipment? What was his name?
John Sedgwick.
I know that name.
Yeah, and he talked about how it was designed. They collaborated with Nike, and they talked to Coach Campbell and said, like, what's your favorite classic muscle car? Like, that's how they design these things. I'm like, I had no idea this went into this stuff. No clue. But we did that, and
that's cool.
We just figured this would do well. Holy cow, man! Like Cyclones are passionate.
Yeah.
They loved that show. It went on fire. It was crazy.
I bet I'm interested in hearing that. That's a really good conversation.
Well, Ross,
send me the link.
Go to iowapodcast.com. So music, Iowa Hawkeyes Music City Bowl. Got to talk about that too. Last year, I think it was last year. Was not Citrus Bowl. Was not good. They got shut out last year.
Yeah, last year was against Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. It was a shutout, right? We got destroyed.
Yeah, got destroyed. And
I don't think we even put up a single point.
Realized the quarterback for the Hawkeyes that day, that was the only game he ever played.
True.
For the Iowa Hawkeyes.
True. Yeah.
So far. I think he's still on the roster.
Also, Brian Ferentz.
Brian Ferentz was booted after that game. Or we knew he was going to be gone. We knew it was his last game.
Yeah.
Wild.
What a weird season that was.
And Justin, this is why I just never know what to expect from these bowl games, because having traveled to a few of them and covered a lot of them, man, you cannot predict what to expect from 18 to 23-year-old young men who have been given a month off of their very designed duties. Like we talked about my radio gig for 21 years, you do the same thing. Well, these guys, man, for every day for the last 9 months, they've been doing the exact same thing. Now you give them a little bit of break to focus on their studies, to do some Christmas stuff, to do some family things. And then you ring.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
You kind of hurt the momentum.
And then you ring the bell again. You say, all right, everybody back. Let's get after it. Let's strap on the helmets. And some teams have figured it out. They got it down to a science. Even after 20 plus years, Kirk Ferentz would even admit it's a crapshoot. Every year we have to debate about when do we travel to the destination? How much free time do we give them there? So you never know what to expect. Like even looking at the rosters and saying, this is a really fun matchup or a close matchup. Again, until kickoff and you find out who's wearing the pads and who's going to be out there. And then a couple of quarters in when you find out who is showing up, it's hard.
Is it just me or does Iowa often struggle with bowl games?
They do.
They can have these incredible seasons where it's just untouchable.
And
then the bowl game, it's like a totally different team.
Kirk Ferentz says it's exactly what we were just talking about. That preparation is hard to nail down. Huh. You've been in this routine all year long. You've changed that routine. What do you do to get all of these young men back on the same track and moving forward again? And every year they do things just a little bit different. Sometimes they travel on Tuesday. Sometimes they try to set up a walkthrough the day before or the day out, so they're constantly trying to move.
Maybe that's the problem, guys.
Stick to
a routine. Why don't we coach this team?
The money's out there, brother.
We should coach this team. I know nothing about football, but we should coach it.
Some days
that's what sports fans do.
Some days I wonder how much the coaches.
I know way more.
Justin, here's what I've learned. You don't need to know anything about X's and O's to be a general manager.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe that's in my future.
Yeah. If you can crunch numbers and do analytics and you're good at those things. That's what a general manager is these days.
Caitlin Clark, last thoughts.
Yeah.
Friend of mine who does, this is a long story, but a friend of, he's actually been on the show, Mike Berland. He's a pollster, strategist. He looks at cultural momentum. He wanted me to ask about, is Caitlin Clark going to go European?
Can you elaborate on what does that mean, go European?
Yeah, is she going to join the European league?
My gosh.
Because she's gotten the tar beat out of her this year. Like, is that, I don't know enough about this, but I was like, what? And he's like, well, she's gotten the tar beat out of her lately. She's kind of had a little bit of a PR thing on her hands. Yeah. So does she go to the European League and keep her endorsements and say, good luck, USA, WNBA, I'm out?
That's a really fascinating thought. And I had not even considered it. So I'm letting it rattle through my brain for the first time. But I'll be honest, my knee-jerk reaction to it, Justin, is that's a brilliant move. That's a brilliant move. She is going, and let's just, some of this might sound rude, but I'm just going to use the words that I want to use here. She could milk the WNBA for all it's worth. She could get all of these sponsors, Nike, Hy-Vee, all of these domestic sponsors. Get them for their millions of dollars here in these 3-4 year span. And then at the end of those contracts, at the end of that 4 years, go to Europe and play in the European League and cash in on that international money.
Mm-hmm.
Get away from this, because she has been, she's done things for that league that we as sports fans haven't seen since Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan.
That's so true.
For Tiger, we had a little bit of it, and I think a lot of that was attributed to racism. I think that it was just the exact same thing we're seeing with Caitlin Clark. People just hate change. And when Tiger showed up, the golf world was pretty quick to realize this is our meal ticket. If we prop this guy up, the rising tide raises all of our ships, and we're all cashing $1 million checks. Let's do that. The WNBA hasn't done that.
Yeah,
and they have
take.
Beat her up, and I could absolutely see her in a couple of years if that momentum doesn't change. What a cool thing for him to study. If that momentum doesn't change, I think that's a really astute prediction that she could say, hey, I got your money. I've got your money, and I'm going to go over here. And by the way, a lot of my fans are going to follow me. If I'm playing in the Spain league, you're actually going to have Iowans flying to Barcelona to watch me play. Yep. So I can see that.
You do wonder. I don't know how the business side of this works, but you do wonder how much leverage she has to go to the WNBA and say, hey, get your bleepity bleep together.
All of it right
or
now.
Peace out.
Yeah, all of it.
Yeah,
And I mean, the league has not appreciated, and I shouldn't say the league as a whole, but it does feel that way. If you had to paint it with a broad brush, they have not embraced her.
Yeah, it's weird.
They have not tried to prop her up the way that they probably should. Now, is that fair in sports? Shouldn't it be a level playing field where nobody gets propped up? Yes. In the real world, we're talking about a cash cow.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about your Michael Jordan, your Tiger Woods. They can change the landscape of all of this overnight if you get out of the way.
Yeah, and nothing says, just for the WNBA competitors of Caitlin Clark, nothing says jealousy more than like bullying and treating her like crap. Like if you want us to know you're really jealous, keep doing that.
That's a good point.
Like keep doing that, because it's really obvious that they see her as a threat, because here is the WNBA that has not been getting the ratings for whatever reason. It just hasn't. And she brings the ratings, she brings the money, and you get attacked? You know, I mean, in Europe, I don't know.
I didn't know when you say you were talking about Caitlin Clark, I thought maybe you wanted to talk about
Time magazine.
The Time, or the speaking my truth comment that she had. This is
hot and cold reactions to that.
Yeah, and that, as you know, dude, when you get into politics, that's what it's going to be.
It's coming for you.
Yeah, the teams have been divided in politics, and as great of a unifier as you think you are, nobody has that power.
Yep.
Once you put your toe in that water, you're going to find out which way the current's running.
Yeah, that's so true. And then, of course, they are February 2nd. They are retiring her jersey at Carver.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, very nice. I hadn't heard that.
Super cool.
They should, obviously.
Yeah. They should.
You know, there are only certain players, Justin, that you can do this quickly with. Like Luka Garza. They have Luka Garza's jersey in the rafter also. True. He's one of the guys that you can put up there. Caitlin Clark, because of her numbers, you can put up there. But in today's world, you got to be really careful.
Why is that?
Think of with our cancel culture thing that still kind of exists, one false move and having your jersey in the rafters becomes a political nightmare for the school. So that's why most schools have this kind of grace period.
Really? No way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a 5 to 10 year period after graduation. Let's make sure that you're not a screw up of an adult.
I had no idea this was a concern.
And if you are representing the university well, then we put your name up in the rafters.
If you're like smashing champagne bottles at your time in Paris and like swearing at people.
Yeah, right. Then they real quietly issue number 15 to another guy on the bench.
And now we're gonna burn your jersey. Your public burnings. Ross Peterson, Iowa sports icon. Last question. Are we going to see you on a podcast soon?
Yeah.
Is that happening?
Yeah. You're going to see me soon. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what that looks like or when, where, how, but Justin, as part of this kind of reevaluation over the last couple of months, and looking at a chance to kind of reinvent myself or really pivot my career, and I truly tried to pray about a lot of those things and see what direction I was supposed to go. Broadcasting is what I've done, talking to people, talking about Des Moines and Iowa, sharing people's stories or helping people share their stories that's what I want to do. I didn't, if I had one regret about my years in radio, it would be that I didn't glorify God enough in that process. And I want to make sure that I do that in whatever I'm doing next. I need that to be a focus. So yeah, I don't know exactly what it looks like or where it lives. I have my friends at Iowa Everywhere that are doing some amazing things.
Good shout out. Iowa Everywhere.
I love.
Holy cow.
When
you
we
got sports podcasting content, Iowa Everywhere. My gosh.
If you're a Cyclone Hawkeye fan, you know about Iowa Everywhere.
You probably
have
should
to know about it. When we got fired in 2020 and Chris kind of came up with that idea for that concept, man, I've been all on board and supporting my friends in that endeavor.
And you've been guest host on there.
Yeah. I've been on a lot of their shows and will continue to do so. And that's, now whether what I do in my future lives there, that might be, if I do something on my own, I don't know yet. I don't know what that looks like and how that fits into what they want to do. They've got a pretty good vision, and they're rolling along with it over there. So I'm a big fan of what they're doing, and if I end up over there, that'd be great.
Well, check back iowapodcast.com. This is going to be iowapodcast.com/Ross Peterson. That's Peterson with an O. And if you're listening to this 6 months later, 2 months later, whatever, we'll make sure to update the link wherever that may land.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
We'll make sure to update that there. Ross, thank you so much
Justin,
for coming on the Iowa
offer,
podcast.
Dude. I love chatting with you. It didn't feel like it had been 5 years as we sat down and talked.
Yeah,
man.
I don't know
really
what the
didn't.
time was, but it seemed like, it was a while.
Yeah,
so
you look good. Keep it up,
good
man.
to see you again.
Thanks, buddy.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.